In this video, we're going to talk about accessing components from your scripting. And we'll also talk about what vector3s are and how they're stored. Something that trips up a lot of new beginners is when they go to access some of the components. So something like accessing, I'll just go to my Unity script, accessing this position, this rotation, and this scale. And they Google how to do it, and they see a lot of code that goes like this. So they'll see something like public, transform, random, or they'll see public, rigid body, 2D, RB, right? And it's understandable because this kind of looks like a variable. So this looks like your access modifier, which it is. And this kind of looks like it's being used like a data type. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but this is creating what's called an object. So C# is a object-oriented language, and after you create classes, usually, right, not for these main classes that you're creating, but usually you have to create a object from the class, and then you can use that object to do stuff, essentially. I don't want to go into too much detail because this is more intermediate coding, but just think of it like a variable for now. So think about it like when I create this transform variable, I'm creating a empty version of this transform, right? And most of the time we're going to assign a transform from this or another object to that variable. A little bit confusing until you actually see it done in code, but for now, just think of it like that variable. And something you'll see a lot is what's called a vector3, right? So in physics, a vector is just a scalar quantity that also has some sort of direction. For example, speed, you can say, is a scalar quantity. So you can say, I have a speed of 20 km an hour. Once you assign a direction, it becomes velocity. So I can say 20 kilometers an hour in a heading north or something like that, right? That's velocity. So you have a speed and you have a direction. You have a magnitude and you have a direction. Reminds me of the Despicable Me supervillain called Vector.
Vector! That's me, because I'm committing crimes with both direction and magnitude. Oh yeah!
The most genius supervillain name of all time. But in Unity, once I open it back up, you have three directions. So you have an X, a Y, and a Z component. And anything you create will automatically be given this transform component. So for example, my main camera, if I click on that, it has this transform component. So it has X, a Y, and a Z, right? And all a vector3 is coordinates that store this X, this Y, and this Z. So a vector3 will usually be stored it'll just be three numbers, right? And all those three numbers are floats. So it'd be like 2.3, 5.4, and 6.6, something like that. And all of those numbers are floats. And this will be the X component, the middle one will be the Y, and the end one will be the Z. Right? And then the vector3 has a lot of functions that'll make it easy for us to manipulate objects on the screen. And each of these, the position, the rotation, and the scale, have their own vector3 values. Right? So that's just a brief introduction to vector3s and to accessing these components. A lot of it is more intermediate coding, so don't get too hung up on the technical details. That's all you really need for now to get a simple game working.